Jensen and hashtag 039's words about Blackwell again giving people more confidence, which we also heard about the dollar, are another thing that might be worth mentioning. Maybe our worries in the second half of last year weren't and hashtag 039t as well founded as we thought. The CFO, Colette Crest, and Jensen Huang kept saying, end quote, look, we and hashtag 039, reshipping in size, we and hashtag 039, reshipping in size, end quote. The main problem was that they weren't and hashtag 039t coming in the right size. They were asked to guide up which wasn't and hashtag 039t what the CES meeting was about. A few of the experts were just being pushy. My friend Ben Riches did compare, and Tony Danson, he does, but Ben Riches. I saw that, he said they worked out together. I thought it was pretty cool that they worked out. But Ben Wright just asked this question, which basically means, end quote, okay, really, I mean, is it longer term, end quote, when it comes to the long run, all you hear is trillions, not billions. Is this stock going to last? It had one of the worst reversals, which told me that the 0.30 guys were gambling. They should go. By the way, we saw from Flutter and DraftKicks that the house is losing. Okay, I and hashtag 039LL get back on track. Let and hashtag 039s move on to real companies, because you don't and hashtag 039t know anything. Yesterday was the 6th time in a year that Nvidia hit an all-time high during the day and then closed down 4%. I mean, that and hashtag 039s what Nvidia does because that and hashtag 039s what the people who own Nvidia do. I keep telling people that the guy who introduced Nvidia on stage is also the name of a hand cream from Procter & Gamble, which is also known as so-called I understand, but they add a D. Yes, they do. I think it and hashtag 039s because they don't and hashtag 039t know how to say it. As you go around, know that in an AV, you need 3 things, a simulation, a trainer, and the real thing. Toyota is going to be one of the top 5 customers in the next few years. This is Jensen Huang. What? Someone told me the other day, end quote, I see you like Jensen Huang because you both worked as dishwashers, end quote. I replied, end quote, I was a line boy, end quote, that is, the things I see with Nvidia employees. What and hashtag 039s wrong with your dog? 3 years ago, my dog died. Should I sell the stock? No way are they going to listen to Colette Crest. She won and hashtag 039t give you the numbers you want. You are getting Nvidia. We had the most shares of Nvidia going into this year. Even though that name dropped a lot yesterday, which none of us likes, it and hashtag 039s still up over 4% so far this year. Fundamentally, their ISN and hashtag 039t a better company to own than this one. Also, I think Nvidia will let you know when to get out of the market because it and hashtag 039s a big cap with big gains. We think it will be one of the last ones to break. And when it does break, it will be clear that we need to stop growing. And really protect yourself. What do you call a drop in Nvidia and hashtag 039s price to around 120? It may come as a surprise, but I think we and hashtag 039LL see 160 before we see 120, Stuart. But I think names like this will drop by 40 to 50% when the market breaks and rates do go where we think they will. That shouldn't and hashtag 039t be a surprise either. Everyone goes through that during a short-term bear market, which I think we and hashtag 039LL have to do. Okay. This year, we and hashtag 039 we're not going to buy and hold. To be successful, you need to be quick and focus on what you do best. We think you should stay away from a lot of places where things have already broken down. Even though there was a sell-off yesterday, if you and hashtag 039 V been here, you and hashtag 039 V had a good start to the year. In the meantime, Nvidia stock is slightly rising again after having its worst day since early September. The semis have had a pretty good start to the new year, up about 4%. Wedbush expert Matt Bryson is with us this morning. He thinks Nvidia 175 target is a good stock to buy. Hey Matt, nice to see you again. It and hashtag 039. Interesting that CES has gotten so much attention, and the halo effect has been almost as strong as Nvidia and hashtag 039's own effect. This week, Jensen has written about both Toyota and Samsung. Yes, of course. Part of it is what we and hashtag 039's seen in electronics over the last year or two, right? Nvidia and AI have been moving the whole market, and they and hashtag 039's been bringing in companies like Marvell and Broadcom that are also working on AI, as well as companies that support Nvidia, like Samsung. It and hashtag 039's either the same thing we and hashtag 039's been seeing or a repeat of it, I think. A lot of people talk about how crowded the market is. The same process can be found in semis itself. You got the sector to an all-time high, but I think only 1 in 5 of them were above the 200-day moving average. Do you think there will also be an expansion in semis? Yes, I believe the issue is that you have a strong environment for putting money on AI in the data center. And at the same time, spending ISN and hashtag 039's very strong in almost every other area. This is true for consumer electronics, industrial uses, and business spending. Along with that, I think the fact that we Don and hashtag 039's know what the new government will bring is hurting that part of the market. So, do you think taxes should change the way things are made? Companies can and hashtag 039's plan well when they Don and hashtag 039's know what will happen. At the moment, I believe AI is still doing well, while everyone else is trying to figure out what and hashtag 039's going on with the world economy. Do you think the tariff picture will become clear in the first half? I Don and hashtag 039's know what to say. Who knows? That is, in fact, the problem. This is what and hashtag 039's wrong with all of these businesses. They want to be sure about their plans, right? You Don and hashtag 039's want to build a new factory in Mexico only to find out that the tax penalty makes your investment useless. Is Nvidia the best thing in the world right now? In terms of most liked? Nvidia is pretty good. The only difference between these two companies is that I like Taiwan Semiconductor a little more than Nvidia. Nvidia is trying to get back on track after the path it took. Yesterday. In September, that was the worst day for stocks in months. CES is now behind us. What do I think about those kinds of deals today? No. Anyway, let and hashtag 039's not talk about CES for a moment. The most important thing for me is that Nvidia has had a pretty flat last 6 months, right? That place hasn't and hashtag 039's really moved very much. Well, there wasn't and hashtag 039's enough talk about, say, progress. What is going on right now? Know what and hashtag 039's going to happen in the near future. I think that was a bit of a letdown, which is why the price kind of went down. But when I think about semis in a broader sense, I start to think about Nvidia. I still love the Nvidia story, but we and hashtag 039's hearing more and more from hyperscalers that they and hashtag 039's remaking their own chips. So I start to think about companies like Broadcom and Marvell that make custom chips. I think those names could have a good run here over the next couple of quarters. That being said, I Don and hashtag 039's think the tech trade is really messed up. I just felt like CES was a bit of a letdown.